Siamo in compagnia con Didier Saint-Georges di Carmignac Gestion e membro del comitato di investimento. This year is ending, and what about next year? There will be a recovery?
The situation in the real economic situation is very different from one region to the other. You have the Western world, the US and Europe, which is slowly recovering from its balance sheet recession. And when I say balance sheet recession, it's important. It means that the recovery is not the usual recovery, cyclical recovery. It's a recovery which takes place in the middle of a public sector which is still very much indebted, and even a private sector, notably in Spain, which is also still under a lot of debt, and therefore the recovery could only be very slow. But it is a recovery which is worth, of course, being positioned on. Then you have emerging markets. This region is not homogeneous. You have quite different positions from one country to the other, but the reality is that there's been a significant slowdown. The slowdown has been driven by China. At these levels, the evidence is that the slowdown has been very much put under control, and therefore, at the current levels of growth, there are still very attractive pockets of investments. And then there is a final region, which is maybe the most interesting one right now, which is Japan, which is very decorrelated from what's happening in the US or Europe. It's very much based on an economic program which is being implemented in Japan, and which creates a lot of opportunities which didn't exist for the past 10 years, and which are starting to shape up. So as a global investor right now, it's a very interesting moment, because we have investment opportunities based on very different scenarios everywhere. So that creates diversification, decorrelated investments, which is exactly what you want for a global fund.
And in particular, what about Italy? Which opportunity of investment offers this country?
Well, Italy is a typical case of what I call a recovery from a balance sheet recession. The situation in Italy is one where the adjustment, the reforms have helped the country to reduce its deficits. It's moving with a positive dynamics, which frankly makes it more attractive right now than France in that respect. So we are invested in Italy. We are notably invested in Italian debt, both private and public, because the economic standing of Italy, like that of Spain for that matter, has clearly been improving. When it comes to economic growth, here clearly, as I said, the potential is limited by the fact that this level of debt remains to be reduced through the years, and so that will limit the growth potential. But as an investment territory, we started reinvesting about a year ago now. It was just after the summer of last year, and we've increased our holdings still recently.
And in this period, it's better to invest in which asset? In the bond market, for example, or equity, or ETF?
At this stage of the cycle, it's a very interesting moment for asset allocation. The first level is that risk-free rates have been going down for the past 15 years, and certainly at these levels, it's very difficult to find any value in risk-free rates, German rates or US rates. It is a stage of the cycle where you want to be in equities. But it happens that in Europe, even if since last summer when Mr. Draghi stepped up and reassured investors about the future of the Eurozone, even since then, if credit spreads and sovereign spreads have narrowed, the reality is that we can still enjoy quite high yields on the sovereign debt of peripheral countries, and also on the private debt on some of those issuers. And therefore, as much as we don't see any value in being invested in US or German bonds, or French bonds for that matter, I'm talking about public bonds, there is value in Italian or Spanish government bonds. We are positioned there, and also in the corporate space, in the debt issued by, for instance, Italian or Spanish banks, which right now offer a decent yield with acceptable risk parameters.
And the last question is about Carmignac Gestion. You have recently opened a new office in Switzerland. Which the next country? And which are your plans for the next year?
The way we've always run our development has been to go very progressively. 20 years ago, all our business was in France, and then after a number of years, out of Luxembourg, we started to offer our products throughout Europe. And as our activity developed nicely, after a while, we opened offices in those countries which we had started to develop. So over the years, we opened an office in Italy, we opened an office in Spain, and so on. In Switzerland, we have developed for several years our business, so that the time had come to open an office there, to solidify and structure our presence, so that we now have a strong position not only in Italy and Spain, but also in Germany, in Switzerland now, in the UK, in addition to France. For the time being, we don't have any project to open an office in any other place. We're continuing to grow our business throughout Europe. We are investigating what are the opportunities in Latin America, in the Far East, but this is still very early stage, so we're just visiting those countries for the time being and trying to establish the extent to which what we have to offer could be of interest to local investors.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.